Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Dom Dumas, and I'm in Bangkok. Episode 21. This is an interesting episode because today I'm going to be interviewed by Karsten. Welcome to the show, Karsten.
Hey, Dom.
Nice to meet you finally. We've been talking on Facebook for a little while now. So, whenever you're ready.
Great. So, Dom, let's talk about you.
Okay.
I know that's kind of a new concept for your podcast, right?
Yeah, it is a little bit. Well, yes and no.
Okay, so I just want to know a little bit more about you and your life story and find out what are the really interesting bits about your life.
Okay, well, I'm an open book, so ask away.
Open book?
To a certain extent.
Well, I'll put that to the test. Okay, so how about we start at the very beginning?
Okay.
Which you told me was in 1971.
Yes.
Was there anything remarkable happening in 1971? Do you have one of those newspapers, from your day of birth?
No, I don't. I've looked it up, but I can never remember what happened on the day of my birth. For me, about the only thing remarkable happened 2 years later was when I started ice skating. So
you started ice skating at age 2.
That's what my dad tells me.
Your dad sold metal products, you told me.
Yes.
Is that any way related? Did you have to test them? Did you put it on your shoes
No,
and then send you out, see if you crash into the lake?
No. My dad grew up in a town in the United States called Warroad, Minnesota, and it's known as Hockeytown, USA, because they have a lot of hockey. I say we. I'm originally from Roseau, but he's from Warroad. They have a lot of hockey players that came out of Warroad, so they call it Hockeytown, USA. How he got into selling metal products, I have no idea.
Hockeytown in the USA.
Well, Hockeytown, USA. That's what they. There's a big sign as you enter Warroad, Minnesota. It says Hockeytown. Welcome to Hockeytown, USA.
Is that a good thing? Because it kind of sounds to me like American maple syrup or baguettes made in the US. So.
Well, northern Minnesota is known for. Well, Minnesota in general is known for its hockey players. If you were to look at the U.S. World Cup hockey team, they have a lot of hockey players that are from Minnesota in general.
Okay. Do they ever play against Canada?
Oh, all the time. I've played against Canada, so yeah.
Was that very traumatizing, or?
No, I don't think so. It's just hockey players being hockey players.
Okay. So you told me you were, your first few years, at age 2 you picked up ice skating.
Yes.
At age 5 you picked up Kiss.
Yes, the band Kiss, yes.
So how did that come about?
Oh, that, as I talked about in my episode on Kiss, which I believe is domdumas.com/18, my babysitter's son was a big fan of Kiss, and I remember him coming home with the album cover and going, "You've got to listen to this," and he put it on the record, and it was just something I'd never heard at that point in time, so it just blew me away.
Vinyl record?
Yeah, vinyl record, absolutely.
Okay, wow. So I got a little vinyl thing at the flea market when I was maybe 5.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't believe it was a real one because it was only 10 cents. So I promptly tried to break it just to prove that it's real. Okay.
Yeah, growing up for me, it was records, vinyl records, tapes. This was CDs didn't come around until 89, so I remember that was the first time I ever saw a CD player. So
you're an 80s kid?
I am definitely an 80s kid, through and through.
I would have never guessed by the karate figures that adore your television.
Well, there's things that I love, and karate happens to be one of them.
Right, so you do train karate, right?
Yes, I do.
Are there any people who were not, in their teens in the 80s who still train karate?
That would still. What do you mean?
As in, to me, karate has always been this '80s thing. There was Karate Kid, 1, 2, and we don't talk about it. And
well, I talk about it all the time, so I don't know about you, but actually, there was one of the problems with karate is they had a few instructors that kind of built this mystique around karate, which was a huge mistake because they've all been proven to be a bunch of idiots. Now, there are a lot of good karate instructors that were training at that time that didn't have this big mystique, like, oh, I can knock somebody out with just the touch of a finger. Karate's not like that at all. Karate was designed as a civil self-defense, and that's what it's still used. Well, it's not still used for that because people still compete in tournaments, but there's nothing really mystical about it.
Do define civil defense to me, because when nowadays people talk about self-defense, they talk about Krav Maga.
Krav Maga, yes,
which is like Israeli defense force showing people how to kick someone in the balls. I mean, tell me how karate is better.
Well, okay, first off, let me say that one form is not any better than a different form. It all depends on the person. I'm a firm believer in that. I've seen guys who studied Capoeira beat guys who studied Muay Thai. I've seen guys who studied Muay Thai beat guys who studied Krav Maga. So there isn't anything, and guys in mixed martial arts, when it comes to a fight, for me, there's no rules in an actual fight. So you know what? If I can get a hold of you, I'm going to do everything I can to hurt you. So if you're going to get close enough, that's what's going to happen. Now I can also throw kicks and punches. So civil defense is Okinawa in the old days was not a very friendly place. It's much friendlier now.
Okinawa, Japan.
Okinawa, Japan. That's
yes.
where karate comes from. It was not a very safe place. It wasn't some place you could just go strolling around with like a cow to carry in the world. So they needed some way of protecting themselves. Now, a lot of the old stories of karate is, oh, the old farmers in the fields, they all created the karate. No. Most of karate comes from actually well-to-do families, and they're the ones who help promote it. But to help prevent from being mugged, they needed ways of defending themselves, and at a time where they weren't allowed to carry a lot of weapons. So they developed ways through other cultures, like a lot of stuff comes from Chinese fighting, Thai boxing and stuff like that. They developed their own system out of that.
That's interesting. I mean, so a few hundred years ago, these Okinawan farmers had to defend themselves against bandits, and now it's, I guess, Japanese women having to defend themselves against Americans stationed there, or
well, I'm sure that unfortunately does happen from time to time. But
do they know karate, or
some of them do? Yeah,
or is it Krav Maga nowadays?
Actually, in Japan, as far as I know, it is still karate is taught in the school system by choice. I do study Japanese, and she said she had a choice when she got into like high school. She could either do dance or she could do karate or judo. She chose dance. Her sister chose judo.
Wow. So, in the 80s, when you were getting into, martial arts, into music, a few years later you started picking up books, right?
Yes.
And not just like, placing them somewhere else, but actually reading them.
Yeah, I guess I was reading when I was in like 6th grade, which would have been early 80s, and that was like nothing that was any just like a random book here and there, but I started getting into like fantasy fiction in like the late 80s.
So in fantasy, there's always the hero's journey, right?
How he's to a certain extent, yeah.
How he's defeating the bad guys. And
mm-hmm.
So in your head, were you fighting the bad guys with karate, or?
Well, let's see. In my head, anybody who made me feel uncomfortable was a bad guy. So, but I also was taught that you don't throw the first punch; you always defend yourself. And unfortunately, at that point in my life, I became very good at antagonizing people into throwing the first punch. So, but that was before I started getting into martial arts seriously. It was like I was picking it up, like I could watch a TV show and mimic what they were doing on the TV show, or see in a movie like The Karate Kid and mimic what they were doing. But I didn't actually have any formal training until it was in the 90s.
What do you mean by you like to antagonize people?
I would usually get in their face, call them names, but I would get quite angry. I wouldn't push them, but I would kind of do things to get them to to get them to try and throw the first punch, and then I would, if they had upset me enough, and then I would
Were you one of those what you're staring at guys?
No. Well, sometimes.
Okay, so tell me, how do you get into? I mean, so obviously you were trying to get into fights.
Sometimes.
How do you go, where do you go? How do you do that?
Usually if it was like in school, it was with like the preppy kids.
Preppy kids?
Yeah, the ones who were like the rich kids. I'm not a rich kid. I was never a rich kid. I wouldn't say I was a jock. I was an athlete, because most jocks at the time didn't listen to like heavy metal and stuff like that. Most of my friends were stoners. I was really big into computers back then, and a lot of jocks weren't. So, but I would usually pick fights with like preppy kids or the rich kids just by they would say something that would upset me, and I would try to elevate the situation to where they would throw a punch.
So you like pulled at their sweater, or put your finger on their button-down shirt?
Yeah, things like that. And I would call them names. I wasn't a very nice guy. I was kind of I won't say I was a thug or anything like that, but I was good at making people angry.
I mean, that's, in a way that's high school,
Yeah.
People get into fights. Did you ever get into fights outside of school?
Oh, yeah.
What kind, where it's more serious, because obviously there's no teacher, there's no oversight, so...
Yeah, there was a time that this kid, it was actually at school, but it was in the back. My dad was off playing softball. They were practicing for a game, and my sister and I were at the park, and this guy was giving my sister a bad time, and I didn't like what he was saying to her, and him and I got into a bit of a scuffle, and he ended up stabbing me.
He stabbed you?
Yes.
With?
A knife.
Like one of those Swiss pocket knives that...
I didn't actually see the knife. I saw he was holding it behind his back, and I put my hand out saying, "What do you got behind you?" After, this is not at the beginning, but later on, after I convinced him to stop picking on my sister, and he was standing there with his hand behind his back, and I asked him what he had behind his back, because I didn't want him to use whatever it was. I didn't want him to use it on my sister, and I got tired of it, and I walked up to him and I said, "What do you got behind your back?" Kind of pointing my hand out, and he said, "This one," thump, and stabbed me in the side.
He stabbed you in the
side, right here.
Ow.
Yeah. It didn't hurt at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So I did end up beating him up. So.
How long did it take for it to hurt?
Once the adrenaline wore off.
How long does that take? Like, if you get stabbed?
It varies from situation to situation.
Wait, how many times did you get stabbed?
I've only been stabbed once.
Okay. So in this situation?
In this situation was probably about 10 minutes. So I chased him down and roughed him up a little bit, and then he went away, and I went to go tell my dad what happened, and about that point in time the adrenaline started wearing off, and I had my hand on my side because I knew I'd been stabbed and I'd already seen the blood, and I went up to my dad and I said, "I have a problem, I have to go to the hospital." He's like, "Why?" And I said, "Like this," and I showed him the palm of my hand, which was covered in blood, and he freaked out a little bit and went and go talk to the kid's mom, and then we went to the hospital. And
how old were you then?
I was in... let me think. I was in 5th grade, so I would have...
5th grade?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that sounds like a rough neighborhood. So, was there any permanent...
area.
Was there any permanent damage?
No, I got 3 stitches. I still have a little bit of a scar there.
Okay, but not lung or anything?
No, the doctor said he hit a bone. So,
okay.
Yeah, he had hit a rib bone.
Oh, well, lucky.
So, yeah, I think so.
So at that point you said, "Okay, I had enough. I will never ever get into a fight."
Oh, no. I got into... I won't say I got into a lot of fights, but I was never one to shy away from a fight.
Okay, so you were a bit of a street fighter?
Yeah, you could say that.
What was the most intense confrontation you had?
Ooh, most intense confrontation. Oh... I guess it was like, it'd have to be a time where there was like a group of friends fighting another group of guys, and you're trying to watch your back at the same time you're trying to watch your friend's back, trying not to let the guy you're fighting get behind you. It gets kind of intense and a little bit crazy at times.
So, but did that involve weapons?
That usually it didn't. Back then it didn't. Every once in a while you might have a club or something like that you would see, but...
So was that a gentleman's agreement, or is it just like, let's not go to jail for this, or
to be honest, it was like none of that actually came into play when we thought it was like, oh, no weapons because we don't want to go to jail. No, it was I don't know, it just kind of like, generally, I mean, a lot of guys carried knives back then, but not everybody pulled them out. So
you basically had this huge, fist fight, Bud Spencer style, and people have knives, but they don't pull them.
Generally, yeah. I mean, I carried a knife. I didn't always pull it.
So what's the criteria? At what point do you pull a knife?
If somebody else pulls it.
Well, by that theory, obviously no one ever pulls a knife.
Yeah, usually, and when you have a big fight like that, generally, back in the 80s anyway, a lot of weapons weren't pulled, so at least not in the area that I was living at.
Because people would assume it wouldn't end so badly?
I think so. I'm guessing. I to be honest, I can't tell you what was going on in my head at that point in time, why I didn't pull my knife. I never felt I was threatened enough that I had to pull it, so...
Did that involve alcohol?
No, not then. I mean, I did drink some in my teens and stuff like that, but no, not generally. So
okay, so that was just fights.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but at the same time, you had also some more constructive pursuits.
Yeah, I think so. I mean,
telling me you did your own radio show.
When I was in high school, my high school had their own radio station, and they would have it would be on in the morning before school, and it would be on after school, and whenever they needed somebody to fill in, I was the one who usually filled in.
Was that cool to be on the school radio? Like the
I
school
thought
band?
It was.
Okay, did anybody else think it?
A few of the people. Usually it was the people who were involved in it. But I did interview some guys. I had some guys from the hockey team come on, and we had did a few shows like that.
So that made you popular. You got to hang out with the hockey kids.
No, I was a hockey player anyway. So
okay.
Yeah, but I don't know. Hockey players were necessarily cool. Some of them were, or popular. Some of them were. I never worried about being popular.
So what does a school radio? I mean, where I'm from in Germany, we don't have that. We have like schools where people, go to school, they go home, that's where they eat, and then they have a sports club somewhere else. So this whole school life in Germany is literally just the classes.
Okay.
So what do you talk about in these radio shows? It's like, oh, Sally has a new, I don't know.
Well, for me personally, what I talked about is like if the prom was coming up, I'd talk about the prom. Usually I would bring in my own music. I'd play heavy metal and stuff like that, or glam metal, which was really popular at the time.
So that went over the PA system.
Over the PA system in the school,
you had like killing in the name of...
No. That's more along the lines of thrash metal. I was more into glam metal. I didn't get into thrash metal until a little bit later, but I don't think my school would really would have liked a lot of that. So
was there a censorship?
No, not really. It was just the guy who was in charge of the speech department ran it. He just kind of went, look, no music that's killing or swearing or cussing or blatantly talking about sex or anything like that. And it's like, okay, go through my playlist. All right. So.
Well, that kind of includes every... Like, what were you
No, blatantly. I said blatantly talking about sex. So.
Okay. So then you got a taste for the whole publicity, right?
Yes.
You ended up on television.
Oh, that was before.
Before
that. Yeah, when I was in my teens, I was early teens. I was in the National Wrestling Federation.
How old were you then?
I got involved in that when I was 14.
Wow.
And I did it for like 2.5 years, 3 years.
So you saw the moves on television, you practiced them.
We practiced them together. Actually, there was an organization already set up before I was even involved. One of my best friends at the time, he was like, "Yeah, I found this organization. You know how we like wrestling?" I'm like, "Yeah, there's these kids that do it in Anoka," and I was like, "Really?" He's like, "Yeah, let's go." Okay.
So you got to fake fight.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's kind of fake fighting. I mean, let me give a guy a suplex and tell me it's not fake. You know,
a suplex.
A suplex is where you pick a guy up over your head and then you fall backwards. You know.
So you can do that?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But I also know how to make it look like it hurts a lot worse than it did.
What are the tricks? How do you make it look?
Well, it's like when you hit the mat, if you fall down, like if somebody gives you a clothesline and you go to hit the mat, you actually use your hands and you slap the mat. Sorry guys about the sound here, but it's like, and then you kind of go, oh, and you grab your back, and you make it look like it hurt worse than it did.
Okay.
So, or if they hit you in the head, you grab your head, and you're like, ah.
So you were on television for that?
Yes.
Is that is that, which channel is that? ESPN?
No, back then it was on, again, we're showing my age here. We had public broadcasting channels back when I was growing up, and it was local. So it was on the local cable network on their own public broadcasting channel.
Let me get this straight. Public broadcasting did teenage wrestling.
Yes.
I can see why you have a bit of a problem justifying funds for public broadcasting.
Well, at the time, you could do... I wasn't involved in the setup of this, but a friend of mine, a guy who became my friend, who was the owner of it, and in his book he talks about it, and he's like, what he did was, to get involved, to start recording, he needed to do a basic video course that they held at the local cable station. So he did that, and then him and his friends started having... It was originally going to be a show where they talked about wrestling, and they were kind of pretending to be like guys like Hulk Hogan and stuff like that, and it just grew from that, and they started wrestling in the studio, and then they were wrestling in their garage, and then they built a ring, and they built a bigger ring, and then they built a full-size ring, and then that's about the time I got involved.
So did you have, your own name?
Yes, I was Mr. Destroyer.
Mr. Destroyer. Did you pick that yourself, or did...
No, my best friend, he chose our names, and he was Mr. Macho, because he wanted to be like the lady killer, and he wanted me to kind of be like the security guy. If you had a tag team, you had a guy that was a bit tough, and then you had a guy that was kind of like trying to please all the women and stuff, and he decided I would be like the tough guy, and he would be the one who tried to pick up all the women, and we were the Mr. Nice guys, so he was Mr. Macho, and I was Mr. Destroyer.
Oh, right. Because in the 80s, Mr. Macho was nice, right?
Yeah, I mean, you think Randy Macho Man Savage, he was like, he had Miss Elizabeth, who was this really beautiful woman at the time, so...
I'm just thinking of Top Gun. I'm like, oh, wow, so he's the good guy. Well,
we weren't really... When we decided to start it, we talked about it, and he had already chose our names, and I liked the name Mr. Destroyer, so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll keep that, But we decided we were going to be like a tag team that would wrestle both good guys and bad guys, and it would depend on the type of match, if we were going to be good guys or if we were going to be bad guys.
Who were your opponents?
We had the
Nemesis.
The Invaders. Where we wrestled them quite a lot, and I had a few singles matches against Invader 1. So
wait, they didn't get to have individual names. They were just Invader 1.
Oh, that was the name that they chose. They chose the guy who came in. He was going to be and his friend. They were Invader 1, and his friend was Invader 2, I think it was. And then they ended up having more Invaders, and that was his name. His real name was Terry Block, but his wrestling name was the Invader.
Well, the advantage is it scales pretty nicely if you add additional people to the team.
Exactly. So.
Okay. So, after your successful wrestling career...
Semi-successful
wrestling career, and you went into radio, did some hockey... Not in Canada.
13 years of hockey.
Well, in the US, which is 8 in Canada, or...
No. I played for 13 years. So.
Okay. So, after that, you said, okay, I had enough of unsupervised fun. I'm going to join the Navy.
Oh, I don't know if it was that. It was more along the lines of I kind of screwed around a little bit in high school, and I couldn't afford to go to university, so I wanted to further my education. And I had a few options. I could join the Army. I didn't really want to be a grunt. My AFQT scores weren't high enough to join the Air Force. I guess.
What's AFQT?
It's like the ASVAB. It's like the Advanced... I can't even remember what it's like. They test your general knowledge and abilities in a written test form. Which is
how many fights did Hulk Hogan have? Or
no, not like that. But just like my questions had a lot to do with science and things like that, and I was quite okay at science. I had chemistry and physics and biology when I was in high school and stuff, and general mechanics and things like that. and I think there was like general reading and general mathematics and things, and I did okay on that. But like I said, the Air Force never actually contacted me. It was the Army and the Navy, and I talked to my uncle at the time, and he said, "Whatever you do," he was in the Marines. He said, "Whatever you do, don't join the Marines." It's like, okay, so the Navy offered a better education program, so I joined the Navy.
What's the education program like?
It was actually all the courses that I could transfer to college credits after I'd finished. So, and I went into the advanced electronics field, or the submarine advanced electronics field. So,
okay, how long were you in the Navy for?
I was in the Navy for about 3 years. I got kicked out.
Oh,
I was a bad guy.
Oh, how did that come about?
I don't deal well with a lot of bullshit. So, and there were a lot of things that were going on that I didn't agree with, and I also took advantage of situations I shouldn't have took advantage of and got caught and things like that. So,
is that something you'd like to expand on?
Sure. It started off, I was protecting a friend of mine. He was having his barracks room inspected. And at the time, one, he was under 21, and two, there was no alcohol allowed in the barracks. So he said, "Dude, I've got a couple beers in my locker. I'm being inspected tomorrow." I said, "That's fine. Put them in my locker. You can pick them up on Sunday." He's like, "Oh, thanks, man." And then Sunday, we didn't run into each other at all. Monday, whole barracks inspection. I got busted with 2 beers in my locker, under 21, in a barracks that you're not allowed to have beer in. That started the downfall for my career in the Navy.
You took the bullet.
Yeah. I took the bullet for a friend of mine. The money that the Navy took for me getting into trouble, he paid me back, but it was still on my record.
So how did that? Was that the end there, or?
Oh no! Then I got in trouble for let's see. I had knee surgery and I took an extra day by mistake, and they got me for unauthorized leave of absence, which is in the Army they call it AWOL. In the Navy we call it UA. And then just a guy I thought was a friend of mine ended up lying about some money that he said I took, and they had records of me at his ATM machine taking money from his account to fix his car. But they didn't want to hear that story. They just, "Well, you're a troublemaker," and they said, "You've caused enough trouble," so they discharged me.
That sucks.
Yeah, well, I was kind of done with the Navy anyway, so.
So where did you go from there?
I moved to Pennsylvania with the girl I was dating, from Virginia to Pennsylvania.
Where did you meet her?
I met her when I was in the Navy. A friend of mine that I met I met this guy when I was stationed in San Diego, going through mess management specialist school, which is kind of a fancy name for a cook. He was from Pennsylvania. We ran into each other again when we were in Virginia, and he said, "I'm going to visit my girlfriend this weekend, but I can't drive a stick shift. Can you drive a stick shift?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he said, "Do you want to go with me? We'll set you up with a girl."
Whoa. You can drive a stick shift?
Yeah.
Where did you learn that?
I learned it when I was 16, when I learned how to drive a car.
Oh, nice. So, once you were settling in Pennsylvania, you took up a few odd jobs, right?
Yeah, I guess you could say odd jobs. I mean, I worked in the restaurant industry. I worked in the warehouse industry. I built houses. I hung drywall. I sold vacuum cleaners door to door.
Let's start with that one. Vacuum dealers. Is that in any way as sleazy as it sounds?
Sleazy?
Like, did you guilt innocent housewives into buying vacuum cleaners by...
I didn't guilt anybody. I could have a 2-liter bottle of soda, and with a 2-liter bottle of soda, I could convince them to let me into their house and give them a 2-hour display of a vacuum cleaner.
How do you do that with a 2-liter bottle of soda?
I would knock on the door, ring the doorbell, and they would answer the door, and I'd say, "Hi, my name's Dom. I'm from the local Kirby dealer. I was wondering if I could do a demonstration for you right now for this free bottle of soda." And usually they were like, "Okay."
Oh, so that's the bribe.
Yeah, pretty much.
Soda.
Yeah.
Did you notice a difference between different types of soda? Like, did Diet Coke work better than Coke? Or
No, we just picked up bottles of Pepsi, so that's all we handed out.
Just Pepsi?
Just Pepsi.
Yeah. Are they paying you at this point, or?
We were paid on commission only.
Okay. So you bought the Pepsi bottles yourself?
No, my boss did.
Okay, well, that's kind.
Yeah,
So you gave them the Pepsi bottle. How do you, like, and then did you do, like, the whole thing where you, like, put powder on their carpet?
Yes.
And then you start hoovering?
In America, we don't call it hoovering. We call it vacuuming.
Okay, so you vacuum,
yeah,
and then you just vacuum the whole room so they get really uncomfortable.
Well, first we put the powder in a little. We didn't use powder. We used like salt.
Okay.
Because talc will clog up systems really bad. So you shouldn't use powder for demonstrations. And we would put a little bit of salt, and then we would take their vacuum cleaner and run over that spot, and then we'd go and take our vacuum cleaner and turn it on and see how much stuff actually came out after theirs. And then we would also shampoo part of their carpet, just a little square, and they could see the difference, because our system, the Kirby vacuum cleaner, had a shampooing system on it, and it would just blow people's mind away. So many people would go, "You're going to do the rest of the room, right?" And then we would vacuum a space on their bed too. That's really disgusting sometimes. You put the vacuum cleaner on the mattress, and this stuff that it would pull out, and people are going, "I need to buy a new mattress," and you're like, "Yeah."
So you should have teamed up with a mattress guy, right?
Yeah, I know.
So would you have bought your own vacuum cleaner?
Actually, if I could afford it, yes. It was a really good vacuum. It's one of the best on the market.
But it was expensive?
Very expensive. $1,400. Oh, sorry, $1,400.
And how much of that was your commission?
If I sold it for $1,400, I got $400 commission.
Well, that explains why it's so expensive, right?
But if I sold it for $1,000, I got credit for selling the vacuum cleaner, but I got no commission.
What's credit?
Just saying, yes, he sold this vacuum, because they had contests like every 3 months, and you had 3 months to sell as many vacuum cleaners as you could, and whoever had the most, they would send on these trips.
Trips?
Yeah. Some people went to Hawaii, some people went to like Las Vegas and things like that.
You go to a trip to Hawaii with people selling other people selling vacuum cleaners?
Yeah, pretty much.
Is that a fun crowd?
I have no idea. I never made it.
Yeah. Well, selling vacuum cleaners. Were you proud?
It was a job.
Were you, did you feel bad?
No. It was a job.
It was just a job.
Just a job. I'm a firm believer.
What do you think about the other vacuum cleaning selling guys? Were they like...
I was always very honest. Okay? When it came to selling vacuum cleaners. And in general, I was always very honest. A lot of the vacuum cleaner guys weren't very honest.
Like, how do you lie?
They would tell them that their vacuum cleaners would be guaranteed 100%, when actually only certain parts of it would be guaranteed for certain particular reasons and things like that.
Okay. Well, I guess it's kind of boring. Wait a second, $1,400 for a vacuum cleaner, and that was in the 90s?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. It was like the second oldest manufacturing company in the world.
Well, for that money, you can buy a new mattress. You don't even have to clean the old one.
Exactly.
Wow, that's amazing.
But it's an amazing vacuum cleaner.
Well, it better be. Okay, so what made you give up such a clean career?
Well, let's see. I didn't have a problem selling the vacuum cleaners. My problem was getting people's credit approved. If I couldn't get their credit approved, because it's not like they hand me $1,400 right there. We had to do it on a credit service, and they would pay we had to do it on a credit card or through this credit service, and they would pay installments, and then we could leave the vacuum cleaner with them. But if I couldn't get their credit approved, I didn't get paid.
Wait a second, you sold $1,400 vacuum cleaners to people who were not able to pay for a $1,400 vacuum cleaner in one go?
Oh yeah, credit's amazing in America.
Well, okay, I guess, that says something about priorities. So you didn't get the credit approved for the...
vacuum cleaners. If I couldn't get the credit approved, then I had to go back and get the vacuum cleaner from them, and I would not get paid.
Oh, was that fun?
No.
Like, you walk there and you're like, hey...
Hey, I'm sorry, I kind of need to take this machine back. Your credit wasn't approved.
And when you pick the machine up, is that like within a week or within a...
Usually it's within like a day or two, at the most.
Oh, so you leave it right there when you leave?
Most of the time we would do a call-in service. We had a credit company that we worked with, and we would call them and we could get instant approval. Now, sometimes it would take a day to process. If it took a day to process, then we'd have to come back and get the machine.
So as a potential vacuum buyer, what I should do is give some fake credit credentials so it'll bounce. So I have a free day of like doing my entire apartment, and then you come pick it up, and I get
that is, I suppose that is a possibility that you could do that.
Okay. Well,
but my boss was usually, he could tell if somebody would get approved, if they were going to get approved or not. Though he wouldn't tell me until after the fact. He's like, well, this is the show model, so we'll bring you back the new one tomorrow after your credit's been approved. So I really didn't, I only had to go get like 1 or 2 vacuum cleaners in the whole time I was there.
Okay. So what happened after you decided this is not the kind of career you want to have?
Oh, I've worked in restaurants, I built houses, I hung drywall, worked in warehousing. So,
which one was the worst?
The worst? Depends on your definition of worst.
Do elaborate.
Monotonous-wise, working in a warehouse. For me, it was very easy. I could build a skid quite quick. I could build a pallet, stacked product quite quickly as I'm going down the aisle and drop it off. But it didn't take a lot of brain work, so I was just kind of like, dealing with sometimes not so friendly customers, working in restaurants as a manager, as a server.
Okay, so that was all in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah. Well, I built houses in Wisconsin and Minnesota. I hung drywall in Pennsylvania. That was before I joined the Navy when I built houses.
So how did you get from Pennsylvania, Wisconsin to Bangkok, where you're now today?
Oh, I met my wife Tracy on a discussion forum for who was one of our favorite authors at the time, Terry Goodkind.
Okay, so how do you get personal on talking about books?
You flirt.
You're like, oh, I really like.
Well, you don't talk. You talk in instant messenger, not instant messengers. Sorry, you talk in like private messages, and you kind of talk and get to know each other, and you find out about them and stuff like that. And they ask you questions.
Oh, wait, let's rewind a second here.
Sure.
How do you even know Tracy was a woman? Like, I mean, it's the internet, and
I didn't.
You didn't. So
No.
you just started flirting.
No. It wasn't.
Like,
It wasn't even like that.
Let's go ahead with this. And
okay, it wasn't even like that. It was okay. My persona on this particular website was a timber wolf. I was a wolf, and I had my own little area on this website and this discussion forum, which was called The Woods. And there were different little areas, like there was Tenchi, which is like heaven. There was the underworld, which was like hell. There was a few other places. The Forsaken Empire, and everybody kind of interacts with each other, and you talk and you flirt with each other and stuff like that. And some people you get to know. Some of those people I'm still friends with today. I mean, we still talk on like Facebook and stuff. But
flirting as Timberwolf.
Yes. In private messages, In private messages, I talk as myself. On the open public forum, in some areas, I talk as myself. In the role play areas, what we called it, in the role play areas, I talked as a wolf, basically. I described myself as a wolf that could talk.
Okay. Is there how would you describe yourself? Like, give us a sample.
How do I describe myself? I would say, let's see. Prowls from stalks out of his cave, coming through the woods, climbing up onto the edge of the cliff.
And at that point, Tracy's like, "That's hot."
No, it wasn't actually like that. I mean, we talked a little bit, off and on in different areas, and then we started messaging each other. What actually happened is, a mutual friend of ours, decided she was upset with me for some reason or another. I can't remember the exact details, but Tracy's character gave this girl's character a knife to cut my tail off, and then she had to give my tail back to Tracy's character.
So
that's how I met Tracy and started talking to Tracy. I mean, she
had your tail cut off.
She had my tail cut off.
Well, usually it happens after you fly to Bangkok. Not
yeah, exactly.
Okay, so you then, separated from your tail, you decided to meet Tracy in Bangkok.
Well, that was like... So we started talk once she had my tail cut off. We actually started talking more on a regular basis in the discussion forums, and then we started private messaging each other. Then we started messaging each other in like Yahoo Instant Messenger and Skype and stuff like that. And then we started calling each other on the telephone, and this went on for about 2 years. And then I decided I was coming to Thailand. To not to only meet Tracy, but to be with her. I knew I wasn't going back right away.
So you packed everything you had?
I packed everything I could pack into 3 bags.
Okay.
And that's not everything that I had. So.
Well, what happened to the rest?
I think my ex-wife threw most of it away. Some of it might still be there. I still talk to her, but.
Were you already separated at that point, or?
When Tracy and I first started talking, no. And then Tracy and I were flirting and stuff, but she was also flirting with other people also that were on this website. And then one of the guys we decided we were I can remember the day it happened. I came home from work. I was working overnights. She was getting ready to go to work. She was working in the morning. I came in the door. We switched I gave her the car key. She was heading towards the door. She stopped, turned around and said, "I want a divorce." Turned around, walked out the door and went to work.
Wow.
Yeah. And we continued to live together until the day I came to Thailand. So.
Wow.
But we stayed in separate bedrooms.
Okay. Once you came to Thailand, what fills your days here? Like, you still pursue your passion for fights?
I haven't really, outside of like controlled fighting, like sparring and stuff like that. I study right now. I currently study karate, Shotokan karate. I studied mixed martial arts. I studied Muay Thai. I studied Tai Chi. I studied yoga. I did teach for a while. What else? I podcast. I write. I'm trying to learn how to play guitar.
Huh. What are you going to do with a guitar?
I'd like to eventually write my own music.
About Timberwolves?
That could be one of the topics, one of many topics.
You're gonna make, well, it's not fan fiction, it's fan music? Fan
music sounds
fan
good,
music?
yeah.
Does that exist?
I have no idea. Well, fantasy music, if you look at some of the not genres, if you look at some of the music from the 80s and from like the deathcore and metalcore and Viking core and stuff like that, some of their music is quite fantastical in its lyrics, I guess you could say.
So you aspire to that?
No, I aspire to just creating something outside of creating music for my poetry.
Wow. Do we get to hear that in one of your future podcasts?
Yeah, I've recited one of my poems on a podcast when I talked about role playing.
Oh, wow, okay. So which episode is that?
Role-playing, that would be at domdumas.com / I'm going to look now because I can't remember for the life of me. I'm sorry. So give me a second here. domdumas.com / It's not right at my fingertips. I am so sorry. Caught me off guard on this one.
It's okay, we can cut it.
Nah, I'm not worried about it. There we go. domdumas.com / 7, where I talk about role-playing games. I wrote when one of the early creators of role-playing games, the originator of Dungeons & Dragons, Gary Gygax, when he passed away, I wrote a poem about him.
Wow.
And I recited it on that episode, domdumas.com / 7.
As Dom or
as Dom?
Wolf? Okay,
as Dom.
Okay, so I would have been interested in the other version as well. Okay, well, thank you very much, Dom.
Well, thank you.
That was an insight into a very interesting and diverse life.
I'm an interesting and diverse person, to say the least. I take pride in being different.
Do you describe yourself as a humble wolf?
I describe myself as a different type of wolf.
Deep. Thank you very much.
Wait. I have something for you.
Yes.
When I end all my podcasts, I have a thing that I do called Always Remember. And as a guest, I would like you to do the Always Remember today.
Sure. Always remember. What I tell everybody when they come to Thailand, especially if you want to avoid having your tail cut off, is that it's a good idea to assume positive intent. There's a lot of friction in a lot of interactions with people due to a language barrier, due to a culture barrier, or just different expectations. And I found that the best way to deal with them is to generally assume that people have positive intent when they deal with you, that people are out to get you, that if something goes wrong, it's much more likely to be an accident or unintentional rather than someone being out to hurt you or to damage you on purpose. That'll improve the interactions you have with the people here a lot, and it'll also make your life a lot smoother.
Okay. Well, I think that's more than just Thailand. I think that's just life in general. But all right, thanks a lot, Karsten. Please rate my show or leave a comment or make suggestions of what you would like me to talk about. You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Dom Dumas, on Twitter at Dom Dumas, and on Instagram, Dom_Dumas. Thanks a lot.